and welcome to the Traders Clinic, your regular shot in the arm of trader insights, philosophy and knowledge, brought to you by two professional money managers, Ali Crooks and Charlie Burton.
In each episode, we answer your burning trading questions and cover all things from the world of trading.
We do indeed, and we're back. Oops, hitting the
we
mic.
are, with a kind of theme for this show, stress. So we're going to be talking about stress.
Yes.
So we're going to take a broad approach first, because I think this is a subject that doesn't actually get talked about very often, but it's trading when you're going through stressful times. So whether it's work, life, whatever else, which is inevitable if you're in this game for long enough.
Yeah.
How do you cope with trading through stressful times?
I've met many traders over the years who have had stress in their life, whether they get made redundant, they're going through a divorce, which is a classic. That's obviously quite common, and so that is a massive stress. Even moving house is a massive stress, or a bereavement, you know. And so I just had that recently, and from when when we're filming this, you know, just 6 weeks ago, and that was a massive stress, as you know, in mine and my wife's life. And I didn't learn from the advice that I've been dishing out over the years.
well, that's how it goes,
because
isn't
it's
it?
been a long time since I've had personal stresses. You know, I remember, nearly 20 years ago, my dad was diagnosed with leukemia at the time, and he's still alive now. But that was 20 years ago, and so this happened, and I've been saying to people, yes, if you're stressed, take time off. That was the general advice. If you get stressed, if you've got stresses in your personal life, you won't trade so well. You're more likely to trade out of frustration, anger, all sorts of things that can affect your ability to trade well. So just take some time off. And then what did I go and do? I carried on. It wasn't so much trading, because I'm swing trading, and it's not like I'm sitting there day trading, and that could affect you. But what I didn't do was just take time away from working with traders and all the other stuff. I should have just I did take time off in the end, because I sort of had a mini meltdown. But I wasn't taking my own advice. And so I do think that it was a learn for me just recently, but certainly don't underestimate how stresses of something like a divorce or a house move or anything else can affect your ability to follow your trading, whether you're trading a mechanical approach or a more method approach.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
We'll go with that. It doesn't really matter. It will have an impact, and don't underestimate its impact on you and your ability to trade and execute well. So that's one of those situations where actually taking a break isn't a bad thing.
No, I agree. I think it's also the acknowledgement. You know, the typical Type A person is going in this very often in a situation like that will try and push through because they might not want to face what's going on, or they'll think things will get better, or I should be able to cope. And often I always said that you're trading, especially if you're somebody who's day trading, who's in front of your screens, your trading is often a reflection of what you are thinking and believing in that period of time. So if you're distracted because you're trying and you're trying to focus on your trading, that if you're trying too hard and there's clearly something else going on that is distracting you, and rightly so, then it's important to acknowledge that and say, actually, I need to step away from a little bit. And the market will be there; it's not going anywhere. But it's easy for people to push, especially Type A's. I think the other thing that's worth saying is also on the other end of the spectrum is be careful if you are using things that aren't really core stressors, or they're just day-to-day bumps, and they all think, well, I'm not going to trade today. There's the opposite. I've seen the opposite with people like, no. I only had 7.5 hours sleep, not 8, so I'm not going to trade today. They need to have everything absolutely perfect, otherwise, no, they're not going to trade. Fear-based, exactly. So, but for me, I think the one I see more is people trying to push on through and underestimating, how much it can take from you, because you're there with your own thoughts, and if something else is in that space, it's very difficult to be clear and focused.
Well, you just said, you talked about sleep then. All right, that was one example, but when people are under real stress, they're
Yep.
not sleeping well. And
Exactly.
again, that all feeds through. I remember there's a great story, actually. I was told this story by Mark Douglas, the late Mark Douglas of Trading in the Zone and the Disciplined Trader. And he was working in Chicago with a futures trader, a pit trader, obviously back in I think it was the early-ish 90s. The guy was trading with about $40 million at that point in the early 90s. So he was a very, very successful pit trader at that time. And then he went through a divorce with his wife. The lawyer, the wife's lawyer, banned him, managed to get him banned. I can't remember how they did it, but they banned him legally from trading. Because the lawyer argued that with the stress or whatever, the emotions of him going through this divorce, he could go and blow it all up and lose it all, sort of thing. So he got banned, so to speak, from trading it was about a year or so. And then when he got back into trading, it took him quite a while to find his mojo again. You have a year off of trading as a floor trader, then it took him quite a while. So then he worked with Mark Douglas to try and help him psychologically to get back into the groove. And so that's an example of, all right, he was probably going through a stressful period, but actually he was banned. He couldn't trade. And so he couldn't even, legally, he couldn't access his money. It was just frozen. So that was a bit of a, because she wanted, whatever amounts were. So, whatever. The markets are never going away. That's the point to remind ourselves. We get, as a day trader, a week feels like an eternity, but they're not going away from you. The markets are always going to be there, and just keep that in mind. And sometimes a rest is as good as anything.
Yeah, agreed. So moving on to something actually, again, around the subject of stress, but very specific. We've got a question is, how can I have a more calm approach to my trading? I find myself getting stressed when a trade starts going against me. Interesting.
Obviously, I don't know this individual, but it would strike to me, initial thoughts would be that the person's possibly got control issues, the need to control a situation. So as soon as the trade starts going against them, they feel out of control. Also, I would ask how much are they risking per trade. But if they're a fear-based trader, they might only be risking a small amount, but they're still feeling stress, because I've found that over the years with fear-based traders, that they're not risking a lot. They might be risking less than 1% of their account per trade, but they're still stressed because they're fear-based. So there's a couple of things there. So if someone's got a control issue, how do you overcome that? Right, okay, so there are little things that you can start to work on. So let's assume that person the risk isn't a problem, but having said that, I would still say drop your risk per trade. I don't care.
Yeah, whatever your risk is, drop
whatever it is, drop it. If the more you desensitize your emotional response to the trade, the better you'll be with it. And then you can always then gradually build it back up over time. But get it to a point whereby you're not feeling the stress. Having said that, I've met fear-based traders who can trade on a demo account, they'll still be stressed. So from a control perspective, and I'll hand it back over to you.
No, I like this. It's good.
Using the Mark Douglas is one of his techniques, again, is to think of this trade as just one in the next 100 trades. So try and desensitize the importance that you're placing on the outcome of this trade, the fact that it's going against you a little bit. If you took 100 trades like this, how many would you expect to win on? Right, okay, given the strategy, whatever it is, your approach. So let's just say, okay, 50 of them you're going to win on, 50 of them you're going to lose on. Why are you getting stressed on the ones that you're losing on? Because if the 50 you're going to win on have got for argument's sake, a 1-to-2 risk-reward ratio, you're making money. So why you have to keep asking yourself, why am I getting stressed on that? I have no need to be stressed. I need to have these losers in order to have the winners that are going to come along as well. So there's a lot of self-dialogue, self-talk that's required here for this trader.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because what you've said links in perfectly to what I was going to say, which is a lot of the time the trader has no idea what the result would be over a batch of trades, because they're thinking, and it's that fine line between giving that trade your 100% focus and energy, but being able to step back. I always say imagine those 100 trades are on the horizon, they're small dots on the horizon. But when you're placing that trade, you've got to bring it in, focus on it, and give it your attention. But then put it away, and it's just one of those 100 trades. But if the trader's got no idea or a false expectation of how many of those trades he thinks should win, or how many inside he feels should win, because sometimes it's not a logical thing, it's an emotional thing, then that trade carries too much weight, even if it is only a small risk, because it's actually about the trade winning or losing or being right. For some traders, it's about being right. It's not just about the money, which is why you can have traders that, it's a tiny risk in comparison. You can sit there and say, if 100 of these lost, you'd still have money in your trading account. But they can't get past this idea that because they've invested time, energy, focus on this trade doing a certain thing, they have a false expectation that this trade must do this. And sometimes it's also the quality. I've noticed it's the quality of the setup. So a trader can look at it, and because the setup looks really clean and nice, and they're entering at exactly the right point, they followed their whole strategy, they feel they deserve something, or they feel they need the trade to win, or it should win because it all looks nice and pretty. But sometimes, as you know, the trades are a little bit more rough around the edges end up being the ones that go, and the ones that look super clean and nice, and you think, oh, that's great. You've built up an expectation, and then when it goes against you, you're like, what's that all about? So there's all, like you said, there's all these different scenarios that need to be. The trader needs to break each of those down to find out, well, what's actually going on here? What is the self-talk? What's the expectation, and where am I having a false expectation of what should happen? I think a lot of it's that when somebody thinks something should happen, the market's got a really good way of showing you that it could be completely different.
I always say the market is trying to probe you and test you as a trader. So whether you are someone who's relatively new, like this person, to trading, or you're a seasoned veteran like us, the market's still trying to get at us. It doesn't matter who you are. And so, like you've just said in that example, if someone's being uncomfortable in a trade that's going against them, or that's happened a few times, and that then starts to eat away at them, or it could be the setup. They think, oh look, this is a grade A setup. This should work because all my tick boxes are all aligned. This one should work, and yet it's the ones that are a little bit more opaque. And I've been in plenty of opaque trades where in my stomach, don't get me wrong, it's the trade is valid to take, but in my gut, I'm like, this isn't going to, I don't think this is going to work. And yet they become the best trades. And the ones that are grade A setups are the ones that, sometimes they do, but they don't really do much, in relative terms. So I think, yes, take all of that out of it, that expectation out of it, and just say, well, this is just a setup. And if this one doesn't work, then I'll move on to the next setup and the next one. And as long as I can stay in the game and I don't start missing out on setups and all the other things that traders do, then that's what will upset their overall results, and keep reminding themselves, look, if I took 100 trades like this, I can't possibly expect every one to win. So how many do I need to win in order for me to be successful? And keep reminding themselves of that. Desensitize the trade you're in now. A lot easier said than done, because I get into trades, and of course you want to give it your attention in the analysis, before the trade and during the trade, but at the same time you have to keep reminding yourself that even if this trade fails, there'll be another one.
Love it. Great place to end. Brilliant.
His name's Ali Crooks.
His name's Charlie Burton.
Trade safely out there.